constraints, people don't come in because I ask for them to tell me something that they're grateful for or a bucket fill, and then they just sit there and stare at me. So like if I miss the first 5 minutes, I don't have to do that. But we're still gonna do it, and we're gonna do it for sure today. So I want to hear something you're grateful for, or a bucket fill for someone. So
I have one. I'm grateful that I get to grow up.
oh, cool. Fun.
There you go.
Do you have like a list of foods that you want, or are you more like just to go see the animals and stuff?
No, so my mom is 78 years old. She has Alzheimer's, and the only thing she wants to do is go sit at the Jason show.
Oh, super fun. I love that. I love that. I love that.
But she's usually in for a corn dog for sure.
Win all around. What else? Yeah.
I've had a couple bucket fills. Rick helped me last week on some stucco stuff that I was having some really curious questions about for a buy that we were doing. And then Cindy helped me on a list that we're trying to run some numbers and get right into the point where we should live.
Yeah.
She helped me run reports and it worked out well for both.
Awesome.
For both.
Awesome. Awesome. What else? What else is good?
I would like to bucket fill all the agents that are on our tutor of the day, because I every week talk to an agent and they're like, I don't know who to call, or what if this comes up? And I'm like, we have this. And I get calls back that they talked to so-and-so and they were great. And so thank you for just volunteering your time to help agents in our office. That's really awesome.
It is a really cool resource because they usually know so much.
I have a couple. I wasn't here last week, so I would like to bucket fill Heather and Lydia for helping me with all my printing needs.
You're like a large bucket for that. Let's get a large bucket out for the printer.
And then Wendy has been doing a lot of open houses on our listing. She's great, just perfect open house host. It provides great feedback. Really great conversation with sellers. And then the agents that were at our newest listing in Wayzata yesterday morning, giving us some feedback to be able to go back to our sellers and get price direction before we go to market is super helpful. So just all the collaboration.
There was some really great conversation actually around that I hope that you guys. Awesome. What else? What else is good? Two more. I know there's more good things than that.
Going back to school.
There you go. You're like, that's a good thing.
I had a little bit of tag guilt about it, a little bit of shame about it, but it's a good thing. It was important. And I get that job now.
Yeah, and yeah, it's like there's like 2 pickup times instead of all of the summer camp. Yeah. Yeah. You done yet? You done yet?
10 a.m.
What else? What else is good? I want to just bucket fill, maybe it's the market center, maybe it's John, maybe it's the investors, but the investors didn't really know before we sent it out. But you all got an email yesterday, which we've never done before. And the first 10 people to sign up for Bold get $400 off of the $7.99 fee, which is huge. And so again, I think we talk a lot about, I don't want to spend money on that. As a market center, you know, and John said, okay, let's do this. We really believe in that, and we believe in how it can increase your business. So I think that's huge for all of you agents. So I want to say thank you for allowing us to do that. And I hope that 10 of you truly take advantage of that, because right now we have 4. Oh, we have 5. Oh, we only got 5 more spots left, people. So if you're thinking about it, sign up and then let us know that you signed up so we know who the first 10 are. Questions around that at all? All right, I'm gonna whip through announcements real quick, and then we have a special guest. Okay, so our August training calendar is coming to an end. I mean, the main thing is that we've got Pirates of the Caribbean on Friday. So there was some hot popcorn. You know, and that movie goes for like 3 hours, so you could just pick it up wherever you want, after lead gen, maybe during lead gen, who knows. Bold, these are the dates that it starts. So the first step is free. Most likely you're not going to be able to sign up at the first step because there are a ton of market centers participating. But if you're like, I just want to go see what it is so that next time it comes, that step is free. That's on the 24th. Otherwise, it has the other 5 steps that end then on October 29th. Here's how to register, and then let us know if you have any questions. lead gen workshop, and 44% of you read the email that had all these trainings on it, so thank you for the ones that did that. There are 4 trainings that I'm really adamant about in the next like 6 months. Bold is one of them, and this lead gen workshop is another one. This is actually how to get your Google up and running in the right ways, as well as how to generate leads from it. It is CE for $40 to learn how to do that, and I went and Googled most of your Google sites, and y'all should be there, okay? Like, every single one of you should be there. And again, you get CE, you learn how to do it, he teaches it, he shows you, then you do it, right? So it's not just like a learn, you take it home and you never do anything with it like every other training that you go to. This is a hands-on, bring your laptop and get everything set up for your business. So again, $40. It's in St. Louis Park at the rec center, just because we want quite a few people there, and we are doing this with Edina. If you know agents that are from co-brokes, they're welcome there as well. And if it's like, hey, this is a great CE opportunity for them, invite them. We'd love to see them there. Questions around this at all? 9 to 3:30.
It's 2 separate.
It's two separate classes. The one is become Google Great, and then the other one is how you generate from that. So it's essentially setting up, how do you figure out your Google? And then the second one is how do you generate leads for free from that, right? And that's just kind of whatever the techie words are for it. Obviously that's why I'm going, because mine's not great either. I just looked at mine when I was looking at all of yours, and I was like, there's people reviews. And then I started like giving old clients, I was like, hey, you want to give me a review from 10 years ago? Sure. So show up, it'll be awesome. Sign up for it. And then if you have other questions, let me know. Holiday party, that's coming up in December on the 4th. And I say coming up because December always fills up so quickly, and then all of a sudden you guys aren't able to make it. So put this on your calendar. We're going to send out a save the date where you can probably sign up already. Maybe we already have, not sure. But that will be at Birches again on the lake. We're planning some cool things. Last year we had the artist. This year we're planning other cool things that you can take home and have a little remembrance of the party. Family reunion, this was one of the other ones. So 3 of them we've talked about so far that I feel like are incredibly important for you. Family reunion is the last one. That one's in February. I only talk about this now because there are like 4 choices for hotels. And so those hotels are going to fill up very quickly in Atlanta, and they range from $219 to like 3 something, right? So you want to get the lower side of the price point on there. Otherwise, you're going to have to go find a private hotel somewhere, or an Airbnb or something, which is a little bit harder to find in Atlanta.
And these are the hotels at the block discounted rate for Keller
Yep.
Williams for family reunion.
Yep. And we have about 52 days, I think, before the price of that actually goes up. And I don't know what that's going to look like at that price increase. And our goal is to get 20 people there, just to have a really fun event.
We have a discount.
So you go in, you register. Once you get your confirmation email, then it'll say click on discount or like hotels, and then it'll give you the choices for hotel, and you'll have your discounted rate there.
Got it, but not a discount code. I got you.
No, once you register, that's how you can get a hotel, the hotel block.
And the first 10 to register for that are going to go in a drawing for $500, which most likely will take care of your flight if you want to use it towards that. Or you can put it towards the hotel. It does have to go towards family reunion. It's not like you get to sign up and then use a $500 gift card to Lululemon. Okay, like not gonna happen.
Or anyway.
It's just not gonna happen. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Maybe and a sweatshirt. Okay, I was like, I have no idea what this is. It's another tech thing.
Yeah. Oh, you want me to go up there? Okay. Okay, so I don't know if everyone's heard about KW and Canva.
Yeah.
Okay, so the official launch date, which if you've been around Keller Williams for a long time, sometimes it does not actually happen on the launch date. But for right now, it is scheduled for September 4th.
When? Thursday? Thursday, that's Thursday. Yeah.
So you have to create a new Canva account, okay? So you have to go to canva.kw.com. can't do this until September 4th, so if you do it now, it's not gonna work. But you'll go to here, you'll create a brand new account. Go to the next slide.
Wendy's gonna wanna know. Oh, she's on.
She's on.
In here, then you can access the KW brand kit, there's templates, you can connect it to your listing. So similar how designs work, right, in Canva. Okay.
But better. But better.
Canva.
And then you're going to connect the KW app in that Canva account, right? So you have to go to the canva.kw. And then when you're in that account, then you connect it to the app. We'll do like this class on it.
Who would like a workshop on that on like Friday if it launches on time? Or like Monday of the next week? Or Tuesday? Something like that.
Yeah, we'll look at the schedule. So when you're in Canva, down on the toolbar, there's one called apps right here. Okay. So if you click on that, then you can search for KW, and then you'll click here, then it'll come down. Maybe next slide or slide on. I don't know if I got all of them. No. Then it'll have a connect, like it'll have this like little purple connect button in there. Click on that. And then it's gonna take you to log in to Command. And that's how you actually connect it. So you have to have your Command login. Okay, have to have your Command. Then you'll be connected. We don't have a lot of information about everything that will be available until it launches. And so as everything is like, it grows as it gets older. If you have a Canva account now, you can migrate things. It sounds like you possibly could get a refund if you have a pro account. There is a FAQ that I can share at the workshop.
Awesome. And like anything, when things change and they're really exciting, which is awesome, and you're gonna have so many new things, there's gonna be glitches, right? And there's gonna be little roadblocks that we're gonna have to get over, and people are gonna be like, it doesn't work, and It works. We just probably haven't figured out how to navigate it yet. So bear with us through it, because it's gonna be really exciting for Keller.
Yeah, it might take a little time, like if you have your brand kit already set up for like your team stuff. Depending on how that migration works, like that might not all be connected right away, so.
Command username you can get from me. I can help you with that at any time and reset passwords and.
Yeah, you will have to
Who
have
does
that.
a lot of work in Canva right now? Who has brand kit set up right now? Okay, so very few people that will like, I mean, there more people can they just kind of fly with whatever. Okay, cool. Next. This is you.
I had to make it.
Well, it's not you, but
It has a big blow up.
Okay, I promise to make this really jazzy, so don't blink, it's going really fast. I did like 3 cartwheels. I'm gonna introduce Dash. He's an amazing insurance agent. He owns his own company, Alacrity. I hope I said that right. Thank you so much. He'll talk to you guys today about condos, roofs. He'll let you guys ask questions. I encourage you to do so. He was super helpful last time he was here. So we're really happy and thankful to have him. So without further ado.
Corner, just staring in the corner back there. Wait, this is me. The headshots were done by Britt, and I have a hairstyle that is now reflective of my actual hairstyle as opposed to before. Next slide.
Kind of like your hairstyle.
Hey, don't ever give it up.
when were you gonna cut that? You were gonna cut that at one time, and then you're like, I'm not doing it anymore.
They didn't pay me enough.
They didn't pay him enough.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Dash Leander. I own Alacrity Insurance Partners. I came from the captive side, so I was with farmers for a long time. The advantage of the broker side is that I have multiple carriers in a tricky market. So that just gives me more options for all of my customers, all of my referral partners. That's kind of the main broker advantage, is that when I was with farmers, if farmers didn't want to do a certain property, I couldn't do the property. Now, if I have a client who doesn't fit in Travelers, I could put you in AAA, or I could put you in Integrity. So I just have more options for clients, which is kind of just the main broker idea of working on the broker side. That's my cell, that's my email address. I also have cards up here that I'll pass out at the end. And I'm just here to help. I'm here to be a resource because it's a really tricky insurance market. The questions come up on walkthroughs, they come up on PAs, they come up on property characteristics. I just want to be helpful to you guys. So next slide, please. Oh, you're good.
Stall. You got signal stall.
Nothing like eating
So what's your favorite color?
Tell me something that filled your cup this week. All right.
Bucket bill, not cup bill.
No, I'm just kidding.
I gotta make KW rated. All right, so now we're starting, now we're rocking. All right, next slide, perfect. Yeah, so we'll go over a couple of quick things, just general like market update from the insurance side and an overview. We'll do a couple insurance policy basics, questions that come up a lot in realtor interactions. Property characteristics that you guys should be aware of that do affect insurance side stuff, so you can kind of have more info on it. Occupancy conditions, which are big, and then we'll do a little bit of time on condos because we all love writing condos. It's the best. And then we'll do a really brief thing on liability protection and umbrellas as well. Super important. Again, my goal is to give you the home insurance 101 so you can kind of convey some of the important points and be empowered when you have leverage, because you don't always have leverage in your transactions. I run into it weekly where I have a realtor come to me and say, hey, can we insure this 19-year roof? And you're already past your inspection period, you're already past your point of leverage, where you could ask a seller for concessions or you could ask for work to be done. So the more that you know up front, the more that you can bring me in when you have time, the more valuable you can be to your clients as well. So that's my goal. Go ahead and go next slide. Overall, this is a tricky slide because as like white collar professionals, as like consultants for our clients, we don't ever want to be chicken little people to our clients and say, because it doesn't help any of you if you say, hey, the market is hosed. I can't close a deal. Interest rates are too high. There's no inventory. Like, it's just not a good, like, energetic, like, thing to put out there. But I also think that our job is to set expectations with our clients in a way that feels like helpful to them. So, like, I don't like saying that the insurance market is a complete shit show, but it is a shit show. And the more that we can, like, be comfortable with that and, like, say, hey, just so you know, this isn't going to be impossible necessarily, but I'd love to bring in an insurance guy, or I'd love to let you know that this could potentially come up. It's not uncommon for a ton of properties, especially in Minneapolis and St. Paul, where the average home built is 100 years, for there to be a lot of issues with roof, exterior condition, electrical, heating, stuff like that. It's very common for property characteristics to make it difficult to get insurance policies in the market. People still are surprised by this. And the more that you and I in our jobs can limit surprises, the better the overall experience goes, because it's our job to set expectations. So knowing that the market is very, very tricky. When I say hard market, I mean they want to write fewer insurance policies and they will have higher rates. So you're paying more and it's harder to get insurance policies. And so the carriers, again, I'm never going to be the person who plays the world's smallest violin for giant insurance companies. There's a lot of culpability with the market for them as well, but they're not running a charity. They don't want to insure a house that has really bad loss ratios because of loss or because of roof or because of whatever. They're trying to find ways to limit their exposure in a market where they're not making any money on the product, and they aren't making any money on home products in Minnesota. They're trying to keep the home product in Minnesota because that's what ties all their business together. They want market share, but they want it in a way that allows them to make money. Can't afford to insure a house at $100 a month when you're paying out on average $150 a month in claims. How the numbers have been in Minnesota for 3 or 4 years. So just know, market is tricky. The average cost of home insurance now in Minnesota is up to over $3,000 a year. Just 5 years ago, it was $1,400. So, and this is just averages too. So like if you get into outer ring sprawl, like in new development builds where you're at $650 to $800 for a brand new build, I mean, you're at $4,000 a year, super common. And that's in an ideal scenario. Like a brand new house is an ideal property characteristic for insurance because it has the best loss ratios as a brand new house or brand new roof, brand new heating. So again, $3,500 to $4,000 a year is the new normal. And so when I'm talking with loan officers and talking with real estate agents, they're plugging in $300 a month in some of their DTI, debt to income ratio sheets, when even 5, 6, 7 years ago, they were plugging in $100 a month for home insurance. And that changes everything fundamentally. And we'll get to condos, but like the crazy thing about condos is that that's been a trickle down effect for condos, because now you don't save any money on your monthly payment when you're in a condo because you're eating up $600, $700, $800 a month on your HOA fees when they used to be $100. So it's screwing up all your transactions. And we'll get into this a little bit, but it's because the master insurance policies for these big units, big buildings are really, really upside down as well. So again, it's tricky, but this guy is not falling, and having a human being to help you out is very helpful, and not having an internet like to deal with is helpful as well. So next slide. If there's one thing that you know about your properties, like the most important characteristic, we get really trained as consumers of real estate to know price point, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms. Those are like the top four. If we can make the fifth one be roof age, you're every insurance agent's best friend. Roof age impacts this market more than you'd ever imagine. And you'll hear it from me over and over and over again because it's so important. But just know the older your roof is, the more tricky it is to have options. And the fewer options you have, price goes up. And if you can't have home insurance, you can't have a deal as long as there's traditional financing. So our general threshold for roof age is about 10 years. After 10 years, it starts becoming very difficult to get replacement costs settlement, which we'll get to in a minute. And it also gets tricky to have eligibility for the policy itself, and then your pricing goes up a lot too. So when you get past 10 years, it starts getting a little bit tricky. And just know that it impacts the whole policy. So for example, travelers insurance right now, it's not that they don't want to cover just your roof after 15 years old. They simply say you're not eligible for the home policy at all in travelers if your roof is over 15 years old. And so travelers is one of the biggest carriers on the independent broker side. And they go toe to toe from a quality and size standpoint with like the Farmers is and the State Farms and the AmFams. And so the more options you take off the market for customers, we all understand supply and demand 101. The fewer options you have, the more beholden you are to whatever options you can have, which means you're paying more stressful, and it's harder to get coverages and provisions that you want. Specificity on MLS is really helpful. I said it the first time, it's hard. A lot of times on MLS, you'll see 8+ or 8- for roof age. And I don't fault any of you on this because it's so hard to look up exact roof age. If you know the specific age and you can find the specific age, it's really helpful. Because again, 8 years is fine, 9 years is usually fine, but then if you start getting to 10 to 12, prices go way up and then eligibility goes down. So just knowing if your roof is 8 years or newer, for example, a brand new roof pricing and an 8-year roof pricing may be $1,500 a year. I mean, that's a big number on your monthly DTI. So knowing actual roof age is super helpful for all of you. I have a lot of resources for it. Some of you look up permits, for example, to find like updates on houses. It's really helpful. Obviously, you're looking for a building permit that says re-roof. And oftentimes, I'll even email the permit people at the city if they don't have online permits. So no, this is something that I'm always happy to offer. Like if you're like, hey, I can't find the roof age of this property. If it's not on the seller's disclosure, it's not in a permit, don't have any info from the prior seller, we're going to run into issues where it's hard to find what the actual roof age is, but we all do our best. We all disclose what we know and we try to get through it. I can offer that service as well if you're not sure on the page. Quick things on seller and buyer side. So obviously if you're in the listing side.
So there's no permit history and like the previous insurance company has, because a lot of times insurance companies like, oh, we have record in 2018. Say previous insurance have it, permit doesn't have it. Their disclosure is like worthy enough to be like, they say 5 years, it's 5 years.
Exactly. Yep. So as an insurance agent, I have just like you have like a professional responsibility to fill out your forms and do your PAs, and you have to represent the info the best to your knowledge. If I can't find a permit, if I can't find a shingle receipt, if I don't have any info from the seller, but I have a seller's disclosure that says, hey, we had a claim 9 years ago and we got it replaced with no permit, I can submit that to my carriers and say, this is my best guess at the age of the roof. It's tricky. There is cases where we don't know, which is really challenging. And the thing, inspections too, is inspection doesn't tell you roof age. Inspection says, what does it say? Very good, excellent, average, below
Sometimes
average.
they give like
Do they?
mine does.
They give you
Like it'll be about 10 to 13 years old. It's like pretty specific.
And that's awesome to do that. I think a lot of them hesitate to do that because they're not sure unless they have info on it. And a lot of times they'll give like life left, which is helpful to us as consumers. But here's the really obnoxious part. I know, even as an insurance agent, that roofs are they're designed to last for 30 or 40 years. You can have a beautiful, intact, perfectly acceptable functional roof that's 16 years old and has another 20 years on it. But guess who doesn't care about that? The insurance companies don't, because they're trying to find metrics to help with their loss ratios, and they're trying to do it at a macro level. And they're like, we're not interested in getting into the weeds about whether it's high quality, low quality, whatever quality. They do that too on renewals. But on new business, they're like, all right, 16 years, we're not gonna mess with it. And it's super frustrating because I have a lot of people who are like, well, this is a great roof. Why would I replace a great roof? And I'm like, fully agree with you. So a lot of times you run into this as real estate agents too. Our job, we can't fix the problems in our markets. All we can do is tell people the reality of our market. I can sit there and be empathetic and validate you about how stupid it is to have to replace a perfectly good roof, or to have difficulties getting insurance because of your roof when your roof is in great shape. But that doesn't change the reality of what the carriers are doing in the market, and that's why it's important. No. So sorry, I'm babbling. Seller advantages. If you are on the listing side and have a brand new roof, put it in your listing description. Because it's amazing. Like, your buyers that are incoming are saving thousands of dollars a year on their home insurance, which is a huge impact on their bottom line for their DTI. And they're grandfathered into having replacement cost coverage on their roof for many, 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 many years. They're not going to sunset out of that for at least 10 years if they have a brand new roof. So knowing the roof age on the listing side can be really helpful. Flip side, and this is where listing agents are going to cringe, the buyer advantages is if you're walking through a house and it's between 3 or 4 properties and your client is like, God, I love this house. I just can't decide. I love this house too. If one of them has a 23-year roof and one of them has a 3-year roof, the challenges and the costs involved with insuring those 2 properties are night and day, vastly, vastly different. And it's going to have such a massive impact on their entire experience because they're going to go to lending, and lending's going to say, okay, now I got to get an insurance quote. They're going to go to mom's insurance agent because they've been with AmFam for 30 years. And AmFam's going to say, we can't insure that house. And they're going to go, what the hell? And then they're going to call State Farm, and State Farm's going to say, we can't insure that house. They're going to go, what the hell? And this is their dream house they wanted to buy, whatever. So knowing on the buy side what your clients are getting into is super empowering because you want to be able to say, hey, I love this house too, but know that this is going to come up. And then in the buyer side, you can say, hey, seller's asking 420. I think we can come in and say, again, I'm not a real estate agent. This is your job. But you can come in and say, I know this roof is going to be problematic. And so I think we should have that as part of a negotiation. If I know that my buyers want this house and the sellers want to sell the house, but they can't insure the property, the sellers, you can put the seller's feet to the fire and say, hey, can we work on something with costs? I think we're going to have to replace this roof relatively soon, possibly before we can even close. So know that. And pricing impact, we talked about it a little bit. Not all carriers rate for roof age. Most of them do, but it can be thousands per year. It can be, I'll plug in a new roof in Travelers and the quote will drop $2,000 a year if I move the roof age from 12 years to brand new. And it's a lot of money. A lot of money, it's a big, big impact. So that's roof age. So no roof age. It's the more you know, the more you have empowerment. Next slide. General interior, exterior condition. I won't spend too much time on this. Think FHA and VA loans, how they can be super picky. Like, how many times have you had a VA underwriter go, you got to paint that railing? You're like, seriously? Like, no, you have to paint the railing. If you have problematic stuff on the outside of the house, like peeling shingles, peeling paint, even like we got a lot of separate structure garages in Minneapolis and St. Paul that are 120 years old that need a little bit of work and a little bit of love. Those are going to get called out by your insurance companies in the 30-day look after close. They're going to fly out a drone or fly out a human or have you do your phone app. They're going to say, hey, we got to paint this. We got to fix the shingle. We got to trim the bushes back. We got to get rid of the debris. So just know that general exterior maintenance can be a snag after closing on the insurance side. I talk about that obviously all the time too when I'm looking at pictures. But again, as the realtor, know that it's going to come up because you have so many boxes to check at closing and prepping for closing. It's hard to cover all of it, but you want to set expectations as best you can when people are working on that. Yes, sir.
I apologize if I missed it. Do you have a provider that covers the cedar shakes roof?
Yes. Cedar, great question on cedar roofs. Cedar roofs are brutal. They're really, really, really challenging. Chubb will still do them. AAA will still do them. The trick with wood roofs right now is that you have massive deductibles. They led the industry on wood roofs for like the 1% and 2% wind hail deductibles. It's 1% of your dwelling. So for every 500K in dwelling, you have 5K in deductible if you're 1%. Now wood roofs, like they're beautiful. They're so beautiful, but they're just so silly. And they're like $120,000. Like there's no small wood roof claim. So now you'll see like 2% wind hail deductible on $1 million house. That's $20,000.
Kind of piggyback on that, I've ran into a couple of asbestos siding properties and one of them said, we won't touch it, we won't do it. I guess what recommendation, because there's a lot of products that look similar. So when I'm looking at it with my client, I'm going, I think this could be asbestos. How do you deal with that and kind of what advice?
Great question. So this is gonna get into a really tricky, like, representation and like awareness, like weeds, that's really tricky for both of us. If you tell me it's asbestos, I'm gonna do the ethical thing, and I'm gonna make sure I can find a carrier that will insure asbestos siding. There are a couple of them. So like, Foremost, for example, is a specialty carrier. The tricky with using specialty carriers for hard to insure properties is that you can't always get replacement cost, which is required by lending. So you can get into situations where you can't find a replacement cost policy that will satisfy lending, but will also be valid for the house itself. So from a disclosure and a knowledge standpoint, if we don't know, kind of a good thing.
So I had an instance where they said it was cedar siding. And then we closed on the property and then 20 days later, my buyer goes, hey, the insurance company said this is asbestos siding. I'm like, how do they know? Did they test? And she's like, no, the guy just came out. And they looked at it and assumed it was asbestos based on the view of it. But
yeah, so no, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So for example, there's a couple paths you can go down. So if I know it's asbestos, I can find a carrier that will say, okay, fine, we'll insure the asbestos siding. If we don't know it's asbestos, then, and I put in like, wood shakes, or I put in some kind of like wood composite, and the insurance company doesn't flag it or doesn't catch it, then we're okay, then we're fine. The tricky part is, like, if you have an adjuster who comes out and says, or not an adjuster, a new business inspector, he says, this is asbestos, we're dropping you, you can't insure asbestos siding. They're human beings, you can challenge them. You can get an inspector out and test it and figure out if it actually is asbestos to appeal. But ultimately, if the policy language says we will not insure asbestos siding and it ends up being asbestos, then you have to go to a market that will insure asbestos siding. There's an excess surplus lines market that'll basically insure anything. And that's kind of where you have to go when you can't find carriers in the standard market. It can be, and this is the interesting thing about the E&S market. It's not as spendy as you'd think because they're insuring risks there's such small carriers. They're almost like boutique carriers where their exposure is smaller. So what's wild is, like, we'll get into this in a little bit, but loss history is really problematic in this market, where if you have 2 losses as a client in 60 months, you're uninsurable in 90% of the market. You just can't get a policy. And so I'm having houses that are uninsurable for loss history, but they're otherwise in great shape. And they're getting quotes for $5,000, $6,000 a year. And that's not abnormal anymore, which is crazy. So like, the more we can get into the fact that, yes, it is expensive, but it's not that much more expensive than standard market. You can't get a policy in standard market. So it becomes this question of like, well, what's the cost of not having insurance? Cost is closing the house.
one other follow-up question, and then I won't get you off track.
Okay, this is fine.
So Minnesota market's getting hard to insure. We all know that Florida, California are impossible to insure. Yeah. Where is it better to insure a property right now? Like, what part of the country is having success with their insurance market?
La La Land.
Montana.
Yeah,
We're about to go.
So is there any?
Yes, so there are, so it's all loss ratio based. It's all just like data. So a thing that I find really interesting is even across the border in Wisconsin, because of, and again, I'm not a physical geographer or a geologist, but because of the lake effect of the climate in Wisconsin and Michigan, I think they have the same climate as we do, and they kind of do. But because of the way they don't get hit by hail and wind and tornadoes nearly as much as we do, Western Wisconsin does, but you get into like Green Bay, Madison, bigger cities. Minnesota is regularly top 10 or 12 in the nation for disaster claim payouts. And in 2023, we made top 3. And that counts. She's celebrating. No, we don't have
So many agents, like, right after a hailstorm, they're like, get your claim, and it's like this big fun, I'm like, unless you like actual like damage, I mean, don't, why are you doing, you know what I mean? Like, why are you doing it? I mean, all the storm chasers, and it's like all exciting, like, I'll connect you to someone, it's like, what are you doing? Now we can't get
value, but it becomes tricky. It
Yeah.
becomes very, very tricky. Anyways, Wisconsin versus Minnesota, you'd think that, okay, they have roughly the same exposure to wind and hail, right? Well, they don't. Wisconsin's like top 35 to 40, like towards the end of being some of the best to insure, and Minnesota's regularly top 10 or 12. So there are states like New Hampshire and like these areas that don't get hit by hurricanes. They don't get hit by like Tornado Alley. So like kind of in the middle. the two slots in the middle, can be better for insurance, yeah. So like average insurance costs in Wisconsin are still around like $1,800 a year, $2,000 a year, and Minnesota's upwards of like 26 to 28, I think. You bring up a really good question too, like insurance companies buy insurance from other insurance companies. It's called reinsurance. And so people are like, well, do my claims in Minnesota, do claims in Florida affect Minnesota rates? Well, in the macroeconomic standpoint, they do. And that's one of the main things that happened with COVID and kind of like the horse getting let out of the barn, is that we did 20 years in Minnesota of like Oprah roofing, where you got a new roof every 4 years and they're good for 40. And it's because of stuff that Candy was talking about. Like you can't, why are you replacing your roof after 6 years? Because it has $2,000. Because we saved money on it, right? Because the insurance company paid for it. But there's no free lunch. You guys are all paying for it. All the homeowners are. So what happened after COVID is like, that was the thing that broke the camel's back. But all the reinsurers, the ones who are selling insurance to the farmers and the state farms, were like, now we need to raise our reserves even higher and our rates are even higher. So all these carriers literally stopped selling home insurance in Minnesota to refill the reservoirs, so they had enough to meet the reserve requirements. So it's a really, really, really tricky part of the market where you're seeing people pause. And Minnesota's trying not to be like Florida and California, where you see insurers leaving. And again, supply and demand is undefeated. If you have fewer carriers offering insurance in a state, rates have to go up and options are decreased. So it becomes really, really challenging. And that's the challenge that California and Florida are fighting right now, where they're trying to find a way to invite big, strong, financially secure companies back in the state to create another actual market. We want a market so people can be competitive in rates. You want them to compete over your business, be competitive, without them just buying market share for 2 years and then non-renewing you or giving you a 100% increase, which is also what's happening. People get in for $1,800 a year, and then next year it'll go to $3,600. And I say, well, yeah, it does feel like a bait and switch, but you saved $1,800 because you could have paid $3,600 if you hadn't taken the policy that was at $1,800. Next slide, please. Novice 2, I'll just spend a little bit of time on this. Generally speaking, if you have fully functional, fully installed knob and tube, it's problematic. And when I say problematic, I mean you can't get insurance. So if it's partially installed, like sometimes you'll have a half story, it's partially installed knob and tube, and it's still installed, it's still creating power, but it's like 25% of the output, or it's not a fundamental part of the whole house electrical. That can be okay, as long as you have a 100 amp service or higher and a board, like a circuit breaker. And then you can't have knobs. So if you have knob and tube questions, just contact me separately. But it's really, really problematic if you have knob and tube. Some carriers will do it, but you're going to be excess surplus lines again. And if you have weird ENS policies, you have weird lending requirements, and it can just be a little bit tricky with traditional lending. It's less of a problem on like the investment side, because a lot of times you have cash buyers, but lending is tricky. So we'll move past that one. Next slide, please. Sewer lines. This is a little bit of a break from the eligibility world, so I'll give you a little bit of a good news. Sewer lines don't affect whether or not your client can get a policy, which is kind of nice. We don't really know under the yard, but it's really helpful to know that you can insure the lines themselves, the buried utility lines. So a lot of times you'll have clients do like sewer scopes, for example. And it's very inexpensive. So you can get the coverage for the line itself for sometimes 50 or 60 bucks a year. And some carriers will go up to 10K, 15K, some even will do 20K, which is good to know because the sewer line replacement is about 20 grand, as you guys have probably seen in your world. Even diagnosing it and getting into it is 3 or 4. So know that you can insure the line itself, and then you can also insure damage in the basement from these lines rupturing, which is different coverage. We can kind of get into that mess. So a lot of times, the reason I put these on the slides is because I get a lot of agents calling me and saying, hey, we had a sewer scope done. The line is intact. It's in good shape, but there's no rupture, but there's like a little bit of intrusion of weeds. Like it feels a little sketchy. And if there's no intrusion and there's no damage, you can insure it, and you should. But it's just like any other condition, you want to get it when it's in a good shape, because I can't add it when I know there's a problem with it. I can't add it midterm a lot of times. So like knowing about it at new business is really, really helpful. And so just being aware of like, hey, if you're going to get a sewer scope done, put out there, hey, don't forget to get that endorsement on your insurance policy. Really inexpensive, 50 bucks a year, which is $4 a month on your mortgage statement. You can insure the line with most carriers. So These are
Does it matter the age of the house or the line?
great question. So some cap the coverage on the line itself at 50 plus or 50 under. So if you have a line that's over 50 years old, chances are, unless it's been replaced, if you got a 100-year-old house, you got a 100-year-old line. But a lot of them are getting done. So that's another great thing to check on permits because they do the right-of-way permit and then they log the work in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the cities are getting better too. The cities are offering not only preferred contractors to do the work, but also financing for it, which is really nice. Like 4 or 5 years ago, you were host. And 4 or 5 years ago, the coverage wasn't available either. So in a lot of ways, like consumers are in a better spot than they have been in a long time, but it's a big awareness thing. You don't know what they don't know.
Then one other super quick previous slide, you cover aluminum wiring.
Yes, so as long as the amp service is good enough and there's a board, most of the time aluminum is not a problem, as long as the condition is good. Yeah.
If an owner is looking to get sewer coverage after the fact, do insurance companies require a scope or do they just?
Good question, no. So that's on the agent's disclosure, the agent's representation of it. So again, like and this is what's tricky about our job. Sometimes our jobs would be really easy if we were crooks. Like, you know how much insurance I could sell if every single house had a brand new roof? It's so easy. But then all my clients would be like, I had a claim 3 years later, the adjuster's like, oh, it says the roof is brand new as of 3 years ago. And they're like, no, it's actually 18 years old. It makes it 21 years old. It denied the claim because we disclosed there was a brand new roof. So it's like, you want to know to the best of your knowledge that it's in good shape. And so they don't require an actual scope. The only time the insurance company inspects your property is at new business. And then occasionally at renewal, and more so on renewals because they have a lot of drone technology and satellite imagery now, they'll do drone and satellite imagery just from the top down. And another kind of off topic thing, well, it's insurance, so it's on topic. They're non-renewing a lot of people based on just satellite imagery, which is really challenging. And they're doing it in a way that is shitty and immoral because they're doing it in a blanket basis to help get off of risks because they're trying to find a way to fix their bottom lines. So they're saying, this is if it's marginal condition, they're not giving you the benefit of the doubt anymore. They're trying to get out of the business to save their bottom lines, basically. So in a lot of cases, they'll say, hey, we're going to non-renew this house because of the roof condition. And I'll literally call one of my preferred roofer contractors to write up a thing that says, this roof is in great shape. And I submit it to the carrier goes, okay, they're good. When they start with the blanket non-renewal and then they work from there as opposed to here's your renewal. And then they'll deal with it at claims time. So that paradigm is shifting in the market where we just had too many years of, and COVID was the peak of it. They were writing blank checks in COVID because they couldn't send people up to your house for wearing masks. So it kind of got out of control. But let's see, sewer lines, yes. We can move on from that one. Next slide. Occupancy, this is one that comes up quite a bit. This is another really kind of tricky 4,000 level course about stuff that comes up. How your client occupies the home impacts what kind of policy they need for it. The most basic one is owner occupied. That's the easy one. A lot of your clients, most of your clients, if you're niche or not, are owner occupied. If it's owner occupied, it can be up to a fourplex. So owner occupied, if you're in one of the units, can be single family, duplex, triplex, or fourplex. And you can still be insured on the personal line side of the market. It's not a business policy or a commercial policy, as long as they occupy one of the units. If you're non-owner occupied, if you're all tenant, the policy can be similar. It's very similarly structured. The occupancy matters for the carrier's risk appetite and eligibility appetite. So, like for example, Progressive is a massive carrier for auto insurance. A lot of your average clients have Progressive before they buy their first home. Then they try to buy their home and they go online and they get a quote from HomeSite or ASI, which is their two sister companies. And they'll plug it in, like maybe you have your client buying a duplex to live in one side and cash flow the other. ASI won't insure duplexes, even if you're owner occupied. But they don't tell you that. So then they find out that it's two family owner occupied with a tenant and they flag you in the first 3 days and they drop you. So it's those little things where you just need to know how you're occupying it and what carriers will do what. So know how they're occupying it and what they're going to do with it. Sometimes they're a little cagey. Like we have clients who are a little cagey about it, particularly with lending, because lending is different for owner occupied versus investment as well, which is tricky. So you'll say, hey, we're going to live in it for 2 months, and then that's baloney. So just know that can come up. Know that in this like gig economy type world that we're in, short-term lease versus long-term lease is also meaningful. If you have a client who wants to do Airbnb with their property, you have to find a carrier who's willing to do a short-term rental. If you do Airbnb in just your regular home insurance policy, you can have a claim that's denied because you're not using the policy that was designed for. But just know, and again, that is what's at stake ultimately. Is like the good news is that it's pretty rare for us to have a horrible thing happen and us get sued for $1 million. But what's at stake is that these languages, these policies pay out millions and millions of dollars a year in liability claims, and they have people on their team whose job is to deny the liability claim. So they're going to say something as simple as, "Oh, you had a short-term tenant when you didn't tell us it was tenant occupied. We're denying that claim." So just know that comes up a lot. And then final one, if you ever have a client who's moving cross country and hey, they live in California, they're selling their home, they're going to buy a home in May, but they're not going to occupy it until July because they got to have some loose ends in California. All insurance companies, all with some exceptions, expect you to occupy the house within 30 days of closing. So again, I don't know what I don't know. If you don't tell me the plan of the California transplant coming to Minnesota who's going to occupy their house 3 months later, and then we don't find out until the new business inspection from travelers goes, "Oh, I did the interview and the people aren't occupying it until July, so we're canceling their home insurance because they're not meeting the threshold of occupying in 30 days. I look like an idiot then. I didn't know it. You look like an idiot because they always like to blame you. and it's a tricky situation where you have to scramble to get insurance. And we have vacancies as well. So if you don't have anyone living at the house that's vacant, again, intuitively, if there's a water leak in a house and it's occupied versus not occupied, which water leak is going to go longer? The water leak that's not detected and not occupied is going to go a lot longer. So vacancy is a big thing too, where you have someone saying, "I'm going to move out because I already bought my condo, my downsized condo, and I haven't sold my big house in St. Paul yet." If it sits vacant, it can't sit vacant for more than about 60 days of it not being occupied. And if it gets past that 60 days, you're going to have to start getting creative, like, "Yeah, I have a couch in there still. I'm still there sometimes." And that becomes a scary gray area with an adjuster where you're like, "Hey, I'm trying to fight a $60,000 water loss, whether it's covered or not." And you're basically like arguing that there's food in the fridge or not, convince them that you live. Because if they deem it vacant past 60 days, they're going to deny the claim. That's obviously a big situation.
So, excuse me.
Yeah.
So let's say, you have a client bought a place last year, they decided they want to rent it, they started renting it. Call them up and say, "Hey, you could probably re-examine your insurance."
100%. And it'd be such a great service for you to do that too. So this happens to me too, and I'm relatively good at my job. I had a client who bought a fourplex, and I wrote the policy for them because it was owner occupied. And 8 months later, the owner occupant moved out and they put a tenant in it. I didn't know for 3 years. They didn't tell me for 3 years. They had a tenant fall on the back porch and break her ankle, and they tried to go after the landlord for broken ankle. I don't know if she broke her ankle or not, but you can get sued if you're a landlord. And they interview the insured and they say, "Well, this says that it's owner occupied. Do you still live there?" He goes, "No, I moved out 3 years ago." And they denied the claim because it was a liability claim for a non-owner occupied residence when it was written as how I wrote it correctly. But that occupancy changed 8 months and they didn't tell me. And then I had to go through a coverage investigation. I had to show up my emails. Client was like, "I'm sure I told you this." I'm like, clients. And so I'm sure we talked about this. No, we didn't talk about it. So it can be really tricky. So that's a great question. Next slide. Condos. This is such a fun topic. Not a fun topic.
Here we go. Love it.
Condos are really brutal. This might be the hardest subset and the hardest little segment of both of our industries right now. I sold my big stupid McMansion in Lakeville last fall, and I was like, maybe I'll buy a condo. Condos aren't cheaper. You don't get to save any. It's still $3,000 or $4,000 a month to buy a condo because my HOA fees now are $800. It's really, really brutal.
Can I just ask a question at the beginning? Is a condo different than a townhome or a detached townhome?
Great question. And I should lead with that. It's from an insurance standpoint, it's all on HL6. If you own the unit and only the unit, it doesn't matter whether you're in a high-rise condo in downtown St. Paul or you're in one of the sprawling townhome, double twin home things that happen in the suburbs. If you don't own the exterior of the building and there's an HOA who's responsible for the exterior of the building, it's an HL6 policy. That's the homeowner's form that insures just the unit with an ownership standpoint. So it's a glorified renter's policy that has unit ownership. An HO4 is a renter's policy where you don't own anything. So great, really, really big question. So for when I say condo and townhome, I mean them interchangeably, whereas for you, there's different idiosyncrasies of it. So, condos are super hard right now because it's this trickle down effect of the condo board, the HOA board, has to go out every year and find insurance for their building. Whether that's, the buildings where it's 140 units in 70 buildings, because there's 70 twin homes and out in the burbs, they have to find an insurance policy for all those buildings. Or it's a case of like downtown St. Paul one where it's a high rise and there's 140 units and 18 stories or whatever it is. Same thing from the HOA, they have to insure the building somehow. The cost and the ability for them to insure those buildings is massively skyrocketing and the market is massively shrinking. So as they're realizing that they have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in their budgets to make the insurance happen, which is a requirement of their bylaws, they have to pass that cost on to the condo owners. That's simple. So again, average condo insurance, like association dues, are going up to damn near $1,000 a month for units that were $200 10 years ago. So that's kind of like the crisis that we're in. But the reason that it's so hard is because there's no such thing as a small townhouse claim, for example. So like if you have a 70 building, 140 unit townhome association that you see all over the suburbs, if there's one hailstorm that comes through, it's a $2 million claim because they're replacing 70 roofs. So what happens is like, again, do not mistake me for someone playing a small violin for giant insurance companies. If you're collecting $100,000 in premium for 1 year of the HOA policy's master policy, you've insured them for 1 year, and then you have a claim for $2 million. Is it sustainable business model to collect $100,000 and pay out $2 million? It's not. And there's way more factors than that, but that's ultimately what the math says to these companies saying, if I'm State Farm, do I want to insure that based on what the numbers are telling me? And they're like, hell no. So everyone leaves that market, and then it goes to all the little tiny carriers who, frankly, are gambling. Because if you're running an insurance company, you're like, hey, I'd love to get into the HOA market. You can collect a ton of premium because there's a market that's hungry for cheap HOA policies. I could insure this entire room at way under market pricing for HOAs, and then hope to God I don't have a hailstorm. Because I could collect that premium and run. And that's what's happening in Florida. That's what's happening in California, where all these little carriers who are insolvent and super questionable are selling these policies, and then they're leaving with your premium and they're non-renewing you and they're declining claims. You want big, strong, financially sound companies providing insurance because they have to pay their claims and they're reputable. So it's kind of this cat and mouse game where they're trying to find a way to kind of make it work.
Does renewal happen on a specific time of the year, or is it different for each
It's
HOA?
different for every single HOA because it's based on when it was founded and when it started doing business. Yep.
It would be in the HOA docs in terms of like
Yep. So yeah, you
when
look.
the insurance policy would come up for renewal.
Exactly. So you want to look at it's all often referred to as the master certificate. You want to find the master cert. So whenever I'm dealing with HOAs and HO6s, which is the unit within the master policy, I always want to see bylaws, insurance guidelines, and the master cert. Because I want to figure out how the master policy covers your unit so I can guide you through how you should set your own policy up.
So the property manager or the board would get in touch with you and then you would shop non-shady carriers, right?
I'll do my best. Yeah. And that's the tricky thing is I have like 2 markets for HOA.
Yeah.
It's really hard to use.
Yeah, well, I have a condo and I think we just renewed. And like, I hadn't heard of any of them. And last year's policy was way more than this year. So now I'm like, are they gonna?
Wow. So,
Yeah.
and again, I don't the first slide, I don't want to be Chicken Little, but there's this huge problem where you have, because of this crisis, and if you're in the listing side, on the condo side, how many times have you run into this reality where you're like, I don't know if I can offer Fannie and Freddie terms because the master policy is so screwed up. Deductibles are too high. And you find your clients being like, I live in a property that's unsellable. Like that puts some panic in people's minds, thinking that your clients are worried enough about resellability and timeline and what they want to do with their properties and how they can move and how nimble they are. Knowing that your condo is uninsurable or unsellable because of insurance is not a good place to be in. It's really, really tricky. So it's kind of the state of the market, unfortunately. Getting into kind of the finer details, we want to know for your client, if you're on the buy side, you want to know, and I want to know, how much building coverage to endorse and to add with our HO6 policy because you want to meet the threshold of when the master policy kicks in. So if the master policy says we're going to cover all damage to the unit, it's all in, we cover everything from original specs to improvements, betterments, everything. We're going to build it like it was yesterday, but we have a $50,000 deductible. That means everything under 50K is on your buyer's plan, on your. When I just put their building coverage to 50K, any loss under 50K is covered by the loss that's over 50K, it's a $120,000 loss. First 50 is paid by HO6, the next 70 is paid by the master policy. They become really complex. My job and our job to make sure the HO6 doesn't have any gaps between the HO6 and the master. You'll see a couple of terms. You'll see bare walls, you'll see all in. Bare walls means they're only going to rebuild like the walls and the basic. They're not going to do any flooring, appliances, cabinetry. They're going to leave you with like a bare shell essentially. So obviously that requires our clients, our HO6 client, to have more building coverage, cover those upgrades, cover those.
The master policy says bare walls.
There you go. Got it. Correct. These terms refer to how the master policy applies unit coverage.
And how do you make sure there are no gaps? Isn't that the responsibility of the owner to go to their, because I mean, I got an email that was like, we just switched insurance, so make sure that you, but if people don't do that, then they're just underinsured.
100%. And don't get me wrong, it is in no way, shape, or form the realtor's responsibility.
No, but it's the homeowner
The
and,
unit owner is
Yeah.
the thing. If you get a letter that says, hey, we just switched insurance, I try to coach all my clients, please forward that to your agent. Or please forward it to me, frankly. Now I can help them make sure that they're set up correctly. I have another question.
I was gonna say, so if you live in a condo or a townhome, you should send that new master insurance policy every year to your insurance.
100%. And most of the agents are pretty good about saying, hey, you should give this to your insurance agent. And the carriers, because I have a couple, I insure a lot of HO6s and I insure just a couple of the actual master policies. So I'm on both sides of the equation. All of my letters to all of my HOA unit owners, I insure the whole thing, is please send this to your individual insurance agent so they can make sure they're setting up. And I put guidelines in mine. I say, hey, based on how I've set up the master policy, this is how your agent should set up the HO6 policy. And most of them do that. Most of them do a pretty good job with that. But again, we can't help people help themselves all the time. There's plenty of times where they get the letter and they just forget about it and they don't forward it. Or they move out and don't tell you. They change that. Or they redo their basement for $100,000 and don't tell their insurance agent. Another big one. Like if I write your house and I'm assuming it's all bare concrete with just utility room, that changes your coverage provisions and your endorsement needs versus a, flooring and a wet bar. So the whole point is the communication and being proactive. And you're always going to have the microcosm of people who are like, yeah, whatever. And you're going to have the type A people who are like, hey, let's go over every line and make sure that we're set up correct. So our job is to help facilitate these people and steer them in the right direction. Hopefully you can lead them to water and they drink. The loss assessment is another big one. This is a really complicated thing, but the HO6 policy, which is the unit policy, has no provisions for coverage for the exterior of their building. Even if I'm walking out of my sliding door and now I'm outside on my deck, this is the HOA. My shingle is right here, that's the HOA. The inside of my unit is all me. So if there's a loss that hits outside of my unit, I don't have any coverage provisions on my unit policy. So the way that it's vis-a-vis loss assessment that you have coverage for it. Because if a hailstorm comes through and there's a $100,000 deductible that the HOA pays, they're going to assess that deductible on all the unit owners. And if there's 10 unit owners, each one gets a $10,000 loss assessment. So I think you run into this with letters. They say, okay, this is the loss that we're assessing on our unit owners. Here's your portion of the loss. And clients go, well, what do I do with this? You just simply give it to your agent and they pay it out of their loss assessment coverage on the HO6. So it's really complicated because this number needs to be much higher these days than it did before because of raising deductibles, where the HO6 requirements for loss assessment are much higher and they need to be much higher. So I recommend, again, on these letters, I say I recommend you have a minimum of 25,000 loss assessment, and I want you to have 50 if you can do it. It's not expensive. It's like another 10 to 15 bucks a year. What happens is the default provision on these policies.
It's like 3 Starbucks though. I mean, they would be able to get that, so.
I know, but you could also buy, you could also buy a coffee machine.
I mean, come on,
But it goes
let's
into
do priorities here.
personal account thing too. It's like,
Yeah.
how many times do people are like, I don't want to buy that because it costs. How many times do you have agents who are like, I don't want to do coaching for $100 a month? They're like, other things that they do.
They don't wanna go to gold. They
Gold.
don't wanna get 7 more times. what they wanna make.
Humiliated.
I mean, damn. Real quick, in case, just for time, we are at like noon. I know you have a flight. We have food here, so if someone needs to leave, it's just great information. I'll let you go as long as you wanna go.
Yeah.
And as long as people wanna stay, I just always wanna make sure you know or are aware of what time it is.
Can't leave until I tell you.
I was like, I want you, and I'm like, I know you're like jetting out of here, so I didn't want all of a sudden us to
Fully present.
make you like lose your flight. Yeah.
Y'all know Dessert Property Twins team is providing, the barbecue, the lunch today, so make sure we all thank them.
Which is actually in this room, not like downstairs. This is back.
We're having it in the back.
Not chilly outside, Tony.
So I'm kind of wrapping up anyways, which is really helpful, but like just condos are tricky, and if you have questions, you can always just reach out. Kind of the. Next slide. Yeah, this is the last slide. So final piece, again, not your responsibility, but just the awareness. I'm trying to spread the awareness of umbrella policies. A lot of people have never heard of an umbrella policy. It's an excess liability policy over your home and or condo and auto. So like, if you can only have $500,000 in liability coverage in your auto, there's still situations where you can be sued and be at fault for more than $500,000, and that's where umbrellas.
Well, I was curious when you said about, if like your instance, right? Or like if you're not moving out of your house completely, can you do an umbrella for short period, like for the whole year, but yet would that cover renters coming in for short term or no?
Yes, so
Okay.
it depends on whether you check the box on the underlying risks of the umbrella. So the umbrella will say, okay, what is this umbrella over?
Would that be easiest to like add to the policy versus completely rewriting it? If that was the situation?
The problem though is that eligibility follows the underlying policy. So if the underlying policy says this is problematic,
Yeah.
it's often the case where the umbrella won't
Got it.
take it at all. However, though, if you have an umbrella that's endorsed to have, because they always ask, how many rented units?
Yeah.
If you have 2 and you have that exposure on there, then you're gonna be good to go, which is nice too. So just know they're very, very inexpensive. $1 million umbrellas start at like $200 a year. It's another $1 million in liability coverage. So again, this is kind of like your portfolio tie-in. You won't talk to a financial planner who doesn't recommend an umbrella, and if they don't, you should find a new financial planner. But that's kind of all I have, I think. I think that's my last slide, right? Questions, answers, and then I think last slide is just like a thank you. So this is my cell, it's my business line. It will go right to that. I can call, I can text. Please use me as a resource. I'm happy to hop on calls. I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to look at PAs. I'm happy to look at bylaws. My job is to give you knowledge for free. I don't charge for my services. I don't charge to be a broker. I get paid by the carriers if they use me for insurance policies. So it's all free. So I just want to be helpful. So thank you for your time. And if you have questions, look me up, and that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Card.
Awesome.
All right, does anybody have any questions? I mean, that was super valuable information.
I have a lot of questions.
Here's someone.
I still have questions.
Your son, awesome.
What are
You
your
guys just die today or?
We'll put out,
Question.